Let's talk about sparring. Sparring is a conversation that's happening a lot at the moment after some comments that Max Holloway made after the last UFC, in which he said he hadn't been sparring prior to winning that fight. And the reasons he gave were that he didn't want to take unnecessary damage, and interestingly he said he'd already sparred, he thought, enough not to need to do it. He knew how to punch and to slip a punch, and he didn't need to take damage to cover that old ground. But what if there were a way you could spar without taking that kind of damage? And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. Sparring is great fun. It is at the heart of what we do as fighters. It's an expression of individuality, of personality, of our freedom, but it does come with the associated cost of bodily damage. If you take too many headshots, you're a boxer, you could get brain damaged by the end of your career. Other people have problem with knee cartilage or shoulders coming out, or need hip replacements early on in life. In fact, all the full contact fighters that I know have got some kind of medical problem such as this operating against them. In my sport of Savate, there are two types of competition in general: Assaut and combat. Now, in both, the techniques are exactly the same. The same kicks, the same punches, the same steps, the same rules, save for one additional rule in Assaut, which is sans puissance. That is, without power or forcefulness. This means that the strikes need to land, but they're not allowed to land hurtfully. They do not miss. I'm aware that there are some styles in which you do no contact sparring and aim to just avoid touching someone. That's not the case for Savate Assaut. It's also not the case that you graze or you just slip over a target. You must land solidly, but not enough to cause damage. I think that's the distinction. Which means that you can come out of a Savate Assaut match with maybe a dead leg, a bruised rib, or a black eye, but if the rules have been followed, nothing more than that. And in fact, in those cases, I would hope that the referee has policed it and told my opponent that the strikes that caused those injuries were too hard. This is a wonderful way, I think, to spar and to train, because if I am not allowed to land heavy blows on you, my accuracy has to be improved. It has to be better than if I'm just swinging full out. I have to be good at timing myself, because if you move and I throw a strike, I've got to judge the momentum of that strike as it reaches and hits the target but doesn't go through it. So I'm learning accuracy and precision and timing. I'm also learning control, both muscular and psychological, because if I need to hit your midsection with a kick, I might have a very limited window in which to do that, and I can't just chuck my kick at that. I've got to wait for the right moment and judge everything properly. So I've got good judgment, good timing, good distance, good control, good temperament, but with all the thrill of the fight. I still have to gauge whether my jab is straight enough to get through your guard, whether I deal with you as a southpaw by stepping my foot in between yours or cut off the ring. I've got all of the tactics and, as I say, the timing and the discipline of fighting, but without the sort of damage or accumulation of damage the full contact sparring and competition entails. So I'm proposing Savate Assaut as a philosophy or a system, a method of fighting that might be the solution to some of the problems that we're seeing. There are a couple of objections to that which I'll deal with. First being that if you're doing only controlled contact sparring, you don't learn the psychological necessities of bracing for a heavy contact, and you might get reckless in your defenses because you're not getting punished in the same way. Bruce Lee makes a comment that Western boxing is too over-daring because of the restrictions or unfair or illegal techniques. And you might think that something similar applies if you were going along this Savate Assaut guidelines, to which I would counter that yes, but you also have more of an opportunity to invent and to create solutions to these problems because you can spend more time in the ring. You can do more sparring, more minutes, more weeks, more years, and learn more tricks and more tactics, so maybe that balances out. You're also getting the timing and the temperament and the distance and everything that I spoke about earlier on this side of the equation, balanced against the long-term damage that you get if you do everything full contact. It would also be remiss of me not to note the times that I've seen fighters limp out of Savate Assaut rings, or indeed the times I've spent bedside in hospital, or coached someone through an injury, or seen someone have to duck out of the sport for these kind of reasons. So it's not injury free, but no contact sport is injury free. I know footballers who have been told never to do their sport again because their ankle has been twisted so many times it's rendered almost unusable. These are the risks we take in any activity, but you might think it our responsibility as athletes and coaches and organisers to reduce or minimise the damage that is done to the human bodies that are put in our care or our control, including our own. It was explained to me early on that Savate Assaut was a retirement pathway for athletes who did not want or could not take that kind of punishment later in their careers, because fighters always want to fight. I think Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson, to take one example, proves that, and I know it in my case as well. I don't want to stop fighting, but I don't have to, because what I do is controlled enough and doesn't damage sufficiently for me to need to think of retiring in my 40s. If you are a pro fighter and you want to keep your body in good condition without too many heavy blows, then maybe the principle of Assaut might be a useful one for you as you train and you spar, but you don't want to accumulate damage. If you are another martial artist and you are looking for a way to practice your strikes without hurting your opponent and spend more time in the gym sparring, having fun, then maybe it works for you as well. If you just fancy the idea of a long sports career, not giving or receiving the sort of strikes that are intended to hurt and damage and maim, maybe you like Assaut as well. So I present to you Savate Assaut. Find yourself a Savate tournament, get yourself along to a Savate Open or competition, a Savate gym or a Savate centre, see what it's about, see the skill involved, and I hope that you can find a way to limit the damage to your own body while you practice, while you train. You have a longer career, you have more health, more enjoyment. Enjoy your training.